Well, speaking of libraries and education, this next topic surrounds that idea. Teachers in Ontario now have a free educational tool kit available, and it was developed by a former First Nations chief. So it's meant to help both educators and students learn more about treaties and territories. And I'm curious for all of you, what was your experience like when you were learning Indigenous history in your school growing up? Ashley?
For me, it was so awkward because I was always the only Indigenous person in my class. As soon as social studies started, as soon as they brought up, Indigenous history, which is a very small blip in this big textbook, everyone would look at me in the classroom and be like, oh, look at the Indigenous girl. Let's make her feel uncomfortable. And then I didn't learn anything about our history, our true history. And that's why I think this package is so important, because I feel like all Canadians should know the treaties. They should all know the true history of Canada, regardless if it's hard to accept or not. And also, to understand where we're coming from as Indigenous people, why we are the way we are, why we've just been fighting so hard and for so long, and also the path that we're taking, to have our culture and to share that with people. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful culture to learn about, and it's important to know your history and the country that you're living in.
Hmm. Well,
Absolutely.
Jennifer
No,
from Facebook wrote us and said, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna add in that I feel the same way, growing up in high school, I went to a native school. It had a native name, and the only time that they would actually give us education, it would be like one Friday a month, and they would teach us like how to make a drum or something, but never actual education on our history or treaties or anything important. It was very tokenized, and my education on my culture from the school system was nothing compared to what I learned at home or from going to powwows or being part of my family's events.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Jennifer from Facebook wrote and said, I wished there was more Indigenous studies in the cities for the children that go to school there. My child shouldn't have to only be on his reservation to learn teachings and language. And yeah, Jennifer, I hear you. I've shared before that growing up, I had this impression from the history lessons that I took that there was this kind of cozy relationship between European, you know, settlers and Indigenous people. And I mean, it's so problematic. And I never even heard about residential schools until I was an adult. And I feel very embarrassed. And I feel like, rightfully so, a kind of shame attached to that kind of lack of knowledge and the kind of twisted way the history was presented. So I think this is essential. And it's also on us to go out and look out for it ourselves and research ourselves.
Oh,
Jess, you have a similar experience, I think.
absolutely similar. And Aloni, you hit the nail on the head for me, tokenized, because I think my Indigenous education in social studies started with learning the difference between a wigwam and a longhouse, and that's also where it ended. Like the gaps were as big as canyons. And I have to say, I took a look through this toolkit, and it is so beautiful. It's laid out very, very clearly for grades 1 to grades 8. And then I clicked on grade 5 because I think that's where my education really started and ended. And there's this one incredible assignment. It asked the class to come together and brainstorm and find 3 agreements that would allow everyone in the group to thrive in that space. What a beautiful activity. And then that's followed up with a series of other creative activities. And Carolyn King, who came up with this, should be incredibly proud. This is invaluable tools for not just teachers, but quite frankly, anyone who wants to take a look. It's beautiful.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Absolutely. Well, there's so much food for thought there. Yeah. And so much on us to go and research all of this. Every person in this country should definitely do that.